Yeah. You want me to use this one or the? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This one?
Yeah.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. We're here at Al-Minhal Academy here in Sewell, New Jersey. Alhamdulillah, South Jersey. And our discussion tonight, inshallah ta'ala, is going to be basically a continuation of the khutbah, which was the power of forgiveness. So I'm going to just go back a little bit into some of the points from the khutbah, and then I'll continue it. So basically the khutbah was about the power of forgiveness, meaning the ability to not allow someone to transfer their negative energy onto you. By repelling that negative energy, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us in the Quran, idfa' billati hiya ahsan, repel evil with what is better. Meaning that you defend yourself against the negative energy that somebody is trying to bring into your space. And we mentioned the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with Abu Bakr, and a man came and began to insult Abu Bakr, began to insult him and disrespect him. And Abu Bakr anhu was patient with the guy until he reached his threshold, reaches, place where he could no longer take it. All right, each one of us have a threshold that is different than the other. Some people are a little bit more tolerant than others, but we all have a threshold. We all have that pinnacle when a person reaches that point with us, that's it. We can't take anymore. And Abu Bakr anhu began to respond back to the person, and the Prophet ﷺ frowned and he got up and he walked away. Abu Bakr concerned that, maybe I did something wrong. The Prophet was sitting here smiling, and then he got up and he walked away, as if he was angry or upset or disappointed. So he chased him down and he asked the Prophet ﷺ, why is it when the guy was insulting me, you sat there, you smiled, you didn't say anything, but the moment I responded back, you got up and you walked away. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said something very profound. He said, when you were sitting there and the guy was insulting you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent an angel that was there defending you. And the angel was there saying the same things back to the guy that he was saying to you. So you didn't have to exert any energy. The angels were already taking care of that for you. See, we're a bit detached from the spiritual world around us. That other dimension that is around us. That there are things happening in the spiritual world as confrontation begins to present itself. We have to understand that sometimes you don't need to engage. Sometimes you can let that world take care of, because the spiritual world and the physical world, they kind of overlap one another. All right, evidenced by the fact that angels can take on human form, and so can jinn. Jinn, devils, or whether good devil or whether evil devils or jinn that are actually good, they can actually take on human form. So the physical world and the spiritual world actually overlap one another. And so sometimes we think that in the physical world, if I don't go out and do this, it's not going to get done. And we don't allow, the divine elements, spiritual elements, take their rightful place in the material world, if you follow what I'm saying. We don't allow spiritual elements to take their natural place in the material world. And they do. All you have to do is just walk away, and sometimes you can see a situation that will unfold. Maybe you never even know about it, but the person that disrespected you, the person that, offended you, the world, this dunya, this world has a way of maintaining balance, equilibrium. All right? Even so much so, the Prophet ﷺ said that on the Day of Judgment, the animal that had horns, that oppressed the animal that didn't have horns, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will settle that affair even amongst the animals. And of course, and then the animals will be destroyed because the animals are not going to be judged. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to do that on the Day of Judgment, right? Just to show how fair and how just He is. That even the oppression that goes on between animals, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will restore the right of the animal that was taken away from it. Allah will restore that right to the animal on the Day of Judgment, and then destroy all of the animals because they were only put here for our use. Allah put animals here for our use. But He's going to do that on the Day of Judgment to show His creation how fair He will be. So sometimes we don't actually see, and this is something that I'm going to talk about tomorrow in my women's intuition. There's a boomerang effect with our actions. A boomerang is such when you throw it out, it comes back. How hard you throw it is how hard it's going to come back to you. So our actions in this world have the same effect. There's a boomerang effect. People call it karma. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But don't think that the actions that you do in this world are not going to come back to you. They always come back to you. That is the way that the world maintains its balance. The world maintains its balance. Don't think that you can walk on this earth and do as you please, and that there's not going to be divine repercussions. There will be. We look at a person and we say, well, this person lived for 60, 70, 80 years and he ruled with an iron fist and he caused so much facade, so much corruption, so much, and we think, when is this person's ending ever going to come? When is his time going to come? Their time always comes. Allah delays a person's punishment for reasons that are beyond what we understand. So while we're in the thick of it, we tend to think this is never going to end. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the longer He allows the person to, continuously, exercise oppression on people, that is only, intensifying the punishment that is going to come to that person later on. And that punishment comes to them in this life as well as in the hereafter. So sometimes we don't necessarily need to get retribution. One of Allah's names is Al-Muntaqim. He is the one that gets retribution from His servants. You can let Allah handle that. That's a choice. But as I mentioned in the khutbah, we have to strive for moral excellence. Moral excellence. The Prophet Allah says in the Quran, praising the character of Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, He said, إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You are on an exalted standard of character. Because his character was supposed to be the blueprint for anyone that aspires to moral excellence. And that is what we should be challenging ourselves to do, is to be morally excellent. And our morals, our manners, our values, all of that should be reflected. And it's a lifelong journey. We're work in progress. But the trajectory should be to attain moral excellence. And when we look at the Prophet ﷺ, that's what he represented. That's what he represented. So, the Prophet ﷺ, he told Abu Bakr that when you were sitting there was an angel there defending you. You didn't have to say anything. There was an angel there defending you. He said, but when you begin to respond back to the person, basically now you have taken that energy. You accepted it. You opened yourself up for it. Sometimes someone comes to you with negative energy. As I gave the example in the khutbah, you might be in a traffic jam and the guy behind you thinks that it's your fault, your problem, not realizing that there's actually a person in front of you. So then he pulls up on the side of you and then gives you the middle finger. And then what do? You roll your window down, chase the person down, riding fast behind the person, pull up on the side of the person, roll the window down. What you giving me the middle finger? Pull over. You know, this is what we're doing. So what you allowed that person to do was to now infect you, because negative energy, it's infectious. Negative energy is infectious. The person has now transferred their negative energy onto you, and you welcomed it. You accepted it. And as I mentioned in the khutbah, that is a sign of weakness. That is a sign of weakness. Strength is being able to repel the negative energy, maintaining your decorum, right? Maintaining, your decorum in your pursuit of moral excellence. All right. But the weakness is to accept the negative energy and to give the negative energy back to the person as they gave it to you. That is a sign of weakness. And we do it all the time. We allow people to dump their negative energy on us. Our hearts now become the vehicle, the storage unit, where people can now come and drop their, belongings off in our storage unit, right? Your heart has now become a storage unit for people to dump their negative energy off, and you hold it. Don't do that. Don't be a storage. Don't allow your heart to be a storage unit for somebody else's negative energy. So the Prophet ﷺ told him that when you responded back to the individual, the angel left and shaitan came, a devil came. Because negative energy, it attracts demonic forces. That's what negative energy is designed to do. I don't want to sound like I'm getting metaphysical here, but the fact of the matter is that we live in a parallel world, a world that is parallel to another world that we can't see. The first quality, the first characteristic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the believers in the Quran is their belief in the unseen world. Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. First quality. This is the book, and it is guidance for those who muttaqeen, for those who are pious. Then is description. Those who believe in the unseen. Believe in the unseen world. So in the physical world, we're living in a parallel world to another world that we can't see, but we believe in. He said that when you responded back, this is the second ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2 in the Quran. The first quality of the believer, those who believe in the unseen world. That is part of our belief. But we concentrate so much on the physical world that we never get a chance to actually start making contrasts between, or connections between, our world and the world that we parallel. A lot of times it's due to many of our leadership. They themselves don't make that connection, help us make that connection. That is what Islamic leadership is supposed to do. That is what Islamic educators are supposed to do. Help us make connections. And if the person that is teaching is not helping you make a connection from what they're teaching from the books to your personal life, then they are doing you an injustice in terms of your education. It's not quality Islamic education. It's not quality. It's Islamic education, but it's not quality because it's not benefiting you in your personal life. It's just a bunch of random, abstract information, abstract concepts that you cannot make connections with. You can't connect any dots with. He said, when you responded back to the person, the angel left and Shaitan came. He said, and I got up and walked away because I don't sit with devils. I mean, just listen to that. That's so profound, man. He said, I don't sit with Shaitan. I don't sit with devils. And some of us are surrounded by devils on a day-to-day basis. Look at your circle. Look at the people that you are surrounded. You are surrounded by devils. And you don't even realize it. Some people are surrounded by devils on a daily basis. He said, the angel left and the Shaitan came, and I do not sit with the shayateen. I don't sit with devils. Showing you that negative energy, it is the breeding ground for demonic energy. You follow me? Negative energy is the breeding ground for demonic energy. Because when they started arguing back and forth, the angel left and Shaitan came. Arguing, fighting, all of that. And sometimes in the home, husband and wife, they're shouting at each other, yelling at each other. And they wonder why. They want to stop, but they can't stop. You walk in one room trying to avoid the conversation. She follows you in the room. She walks out of the room waving the white flag saying, enough. I don't want to fight. And you just can't stop. You can't stop because you have now invited demonic forces into your home, into your relationship, into your space. And you don't even realize it. Negative energy is the breeding ground for demonic energy. So, the Prophet ﷺ, he epitomized or he embodied, moral excellence. And this is what we are trying to get to. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was sitting with the Prophet ﷺ and he was approached by some Jews. All right, the Muslim community in the early stages since the migration, when they lived in Medina, they used to share that territory with the Jews. All right, the first constitution that was written by the Prophet ﷺ, he had it written for the Muslims. It included laws that protected the Jews that actually lived in Medina during that time. All right. One day, the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his wife Aisha, and they walked over to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, Assalamu alaik. It sounds like Assalamu alaik, but Assalamu alaik means death be upon you. This is what they wished upon the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ responded with, Wa alaikum. They said, Assalamu alaik. He said, Wa alaikum. They said, may death be upon you. He said, and to you too. Didn't require anything more than that. We're talking about moral excellence, right? This is a manifestation of it right here. A demonstration right here in front of us of moral excellence. They walked by and they said, Assalamu alaik, death be upon you. All right, and this is equivalent to what happens sometimes. Somebody goes past our Facebook page, go past our Instagram page, go past our Twitter page, and they leave a negative comment. Guess what? You don't have to comment on every negative comment. You don't. And we get into these long, drawn out, arguing back and forth comments, 2-3 pages long. Not necessary. What if I told you you did not have to respond to every single negative message that was sent to you? You don't. Every comment left, right? Every comment left, you don't have to respond to that. You don't. You could ignore it. You could ignore it. If you chose to, you could ignore it. Here we're talking about moral excellence. So the Prophet ﷺ responded with, Wa alaikum, and to you too. So Aisha, she said, فَلَمَّا فَهِمْتُهَا. When I realized what they said to the Prophet ﷺ, she said, I got angry, I got upset, And I said to them, may Allah curse you, may the anger of Allah be upon you, and may death be upon you. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Aisha, ma biki. He said, Aisha, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? He said, Mahlan, relax. Relax, you don't have to respond like that. And she said, oh Messenger of Allah, didn't you hear what they said to you? And he said, Ama sami'ti ma qultu lahum. Didn't you hear what I replied back? What I said was sufficient. I didn't need to get out of character. What happened to Aisha at that very moment? What happened? What happened to her? No, I'm saying when she responded with the level of, microaggression, if you could call it that, what happened to her in that moment?
She was just as bad as the people who made the speech.
Right. The transference of negative energy. You see what happened? That's a clear example. She's sitting with her husband, minding their own business. Group of Jews walk by and say, Assalamu alaikum, being sarcastic, being funny, and being disrespectful at the same time. Death be upon you. The Prophet ﷺ here, moral excellence. He said, and upon you too. He responded, but he responded in a way that it did not require the same level of negative energy. So you can respond, but your response should be along the lines of moral excellence. I'm not going to respond to you the exact same way you gave it to me. I'm not going to let you transfer your negative energy onto me. And Aisha, she caught it. She said, when I understood what they were saying, now she becomes affected. Right? That negative energy was transferred right onto her. And she became irate. She became just as they were, if not more. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ responded the way he did. He said, Mahlan Aisha, relax. Abiki, what's wrong with you? She said, thinking that her response was justified, she said, didn't you hear what they said to you? Thinking that the way she responded was justified because she was giving them back the same negative energy they gave. No. We're talking about moral excellence here. You don't fight fire with fire. You usually end up with ashes. Sometimes the Wi-Fi is not that great, so if the video is skipping or whatever the case may be, you may have to watch the replay again, inshallah ta'ala. If you're having problems on Facebook Live, you can also go to Periscope, and it's also being streamed live on Periscope as well. All right, so if you're having problems on Facebook Live, you can go to Periscope and listen as well. All right, so the Prophet ﷺ had to correct Aisha. He said, basically, how I responded was sufficient. And then he explained, he said, فَإِنَّهُ يُسْتَجَابُ لِي فِيهِمْ وَلَا يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُمْ فِيَّ. He said that Allah will respond to my dua against them, but Allah will not respond to their dua against me. So I don't need, when you're in the right, you have to allow karma to do what it does. You sometimes can go from being the victim to now the oppressor, in pursuit of what you think is your right. Going after something that you believe someone took from you sometimes can actually make you now the bad guy. So you went from being the victim to the villain. You understand? Don't put yourself in that situation. Don't go from being the victim to being the villain, the bad guy. So please be careful with that, man. So the Prophet ﷺ, he did not allow for the transference of their negative energy. Rather, he repelled it with what was better, opting for the high moral excellence. And there was another incident where, as I mentioned before, when we talk about the power of forgiveness, and sometimes people go too far in their transgression against you. Sometimes people transgress against you and they go too far in that. All right, and they complicate your desire to forgive. Some people have a very forgiving nature. They want to forgive. But the other person that you want to forgive has now become a challenge for you because they have gone so far in their transgression against you, it complicates now even the ability to forgive them, right? And, you have to stop allowing other people to be a challenge in your life to the point where you stop striving for moral excellence. We can't allow people to become challenges, obstacles, all right, in our way of pursuing moral excellence. Yeah, sometimes people are in your life and they complicate your life so much. Things you want to forgive them. You want to be merciful to them. You want to be understanding of their situation. But sometimes they go so far, they complicate that. And they just represent a challenge for you. All right, because what doesn't challenge you is not going to change you. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed people in our lives that become challenges for us because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for us. As Allah says in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. We have made some of you a test for others. Won't you be patient? So that you can reach that level of moral excellence. How in the world are you going to reach moral excellence if you don't have people in your life that challenge you? It could be your children. We all have that one child that challenges you. I got a couple of them, not just one. I got a couple of them that are challenges for your ability to be, that perfect parent. All right, because if these children didn't exist in your life, you would be the perfect parent. But these children represent a challenge for you. And the only way that you are going to, come out of your comfort zone of mediocrity is to have these children that represent that challenge for you so that you can see yourself growing and getting better as the days go by with these children in your life. You follow me? It could be a spouse. For some of us, our spouses represent our challenge, our biggest challenge. If we weren't married to this person, you believe that you would be the perfect specimen of a Muslim. Which is why we work so hard trying to change the person in our lives. We want them to be more like us. Because we think if you were more like me, we wouldn't be having these problems, right? Sad, man. Sad state of affairs, man, to believe that if this human being was more like you wouldn't be having the problems that you have. It's so dismissive. So dismissive. Not dismissive of this person's journey, of that person's journey, but dismissive of your own journey. Because if that person was more like you, your marriage would be perfect, but you would be mediocre. You would be bare minimum. But that person, along with the challenges that they have and along with the challenges that they bring to your marriage, they represent a challenge for you. And the more you're patient with them, the more that you're enduring the harm that you receive from them, the more, and I'm talking about within reason, right? I'm not talking about a person beating your brains out and you're being patient with that so you can become better. No, in that situation, you become worse. Don't ever be anybody's victim. Don't ever be a journey in somebody else. Don't ever be a passenger in your own journey to self-discovery. You letting someone else control the wheel while you just a passenger in the journey. No, take the wheel, right? You take the wheel, right? Christians say all the time, Jesus, take the wheel. No, you take the wheel. Why are you still being a passenger in your own journey to self-discovery? How in the world are you ever going to arrive at anything substantial with somebody else behind the wheel? And that's what, people who are in, abusive relationships, people who are in relationships, well, should I be patient if a person I'm experiencing debate? Like, why would you even ask a question like that? That goes without saying. Do I really have to respond to something like that? Come on. So, we have to understand that, people are going to challenge us. People are going to challenge us. But you have to know that by forgiving someone, it doesn't make you the weaker person. It actually makes you the stronger person. Forgiveness does not mean that you are weak. Forgiveness means that you are actually strong. Why? How? Because the reason why you are forgiving the person It's not because you can't do to the person what they did to you. You could. You just choose not to. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَيْسَ الشَّدِيدُ بِسُرْعَةٍ إِنَّمَا الشَّدِيدُ الَّذِي يَمْلِكُ نَفْسَهُ عِنْدَ الْغَضَبِ. That the strong person is not the person who can wrestle someone to the floor, who can throw somebody on the ground, but the strong person is the one that can control himself when he becomes angry. That's power. That's strength. Not giving in to the negative energy. Real power, real strength is the ability to forgive the person even though you don't have to, even though if you chose not to, you would be in your right to do so. But you go against the status quo. You go against how you feel and you challenge yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to forgive you. Not because I want to let you off the hook, not because I can't do to you what you did to me. I could do that, but I'm choosing not to. The strong person is not the one that can wrestle someone to the ground. The strong person is the one that can control himself when they get angry. That's strength. That's power. It's self-control, self-discipline. Ali radiallahu anhu, he mentioned in the narration, he said, إِذَا قَدَرْتَ عَلَىٰ عَدُوِّكَ فَاجْعَلْ فِي الْعَفْوِ شُكْرًا لِقُدْرَةِ عَلَيْهِ. Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he said that if you have the power to conquer your enemy, if you have the power to conquer your enemy, as a matter of fact, I'm actually working on a book as we speak. It's called The 48 Laws of Power from Islam. Many of you are aware of the book, The 48 Laws of Power, right? By Sun Tzu, right? Well, I'm working on a book currently, The 48 Laws of Islamic Power. And this is one of the laws here. That if you have the power to conquer your enemy, you have the power to conquer your enemy. Make your forgiveness of your enemy your sign of gratitude to Allah for giving you the power to conquer your enemy. That's true power. In the 48 laws of power, one of the laws is to crush your enemy completely. Meaning, give him no time to recover and come back. Crush him completely. In Islam, we are told the exact opposite. I'm not going to crush you completely. I'm going to forgive you. And then I'm going to walk away and I'm going to let you deal with your own negative energy, not me. You're not going to transfer that energy to me. I'm going to pardon you and forgive you so I can sleep well. Because sometimes, as I said before, we allow our hearts to, people to live rent-free in our hearts. People walking around with resentment, hating people, just wanting to see the person destroyed. And as some of the scholars say, that envy, it destroys the person who is envious before it even touches the person that you are envious of. The person that you're envious of may not even know that you're envious of them. I sleep well at night. I didn't even know that this was a thing, right? You're envious of me, right? Sometimes people are in a challenge, they're in a competition with you. It's a silent competition between them and themselves because you didn't even know that it was a thing. I didn't even know that we were in competition. I didn't even know that this was a thing, right? You're envious of this person. You hate this person. And the person that you hate, the person that you can't stand, doesn't even know that you exist. I mean, you think about the logic in this. The person doesn't even know that you exist. And this is this generation's trial. Because many of you guys, millennials, your whole entire life is behind a computer. Your entire life is behind a computer. You're not out and about. People don't know who you are. Some people use fictitious names and thumbnails and profile pics. That's not even you. Wallah al-Azim, 90% of the stuff that you see on the internet is not real. It's a mirage. It's not real. Here you are communicating with the person. They got their profile And then when you see the person in person, it's not even that person. You're like, well, why do you have that as your profile pic? That's not even you. I mean, like, you can't get anything authentic from anybody behind a computer desk. Nothing about them is, your profile pic is fake. The stuff that you post is fake. It's not real. You want people to think you're intelligent. You want people to think that you're having a beautiful life. You want people to think everything about you is a mirage. And it's sad, man. It really is. I grew up in a different generation. I'm cut from a different cloth. When I grew up, there was no such thing as an internet. The only cell phones that we had came in BMWs that were like a block like this big with an antenna connected to it. Right? That's the only cell phones that I can recall growing up. We didn't have that. But you have people today that spend their entire lives behind a computer. And that's the extent of their lives. You have people who are famous for being behind a computer. You wouldn't even know who they were if they were standing in front of you. Bloggers and all of these writers, and you don't know what these people look like. So don't allow somebody to live rent-free in your heart. You're walking around having all types of resentment and hatred for a person, and the person doesn't even know that you exist. So he said that if you have the power to crush your enemy, to conquer your enemy, then make your forgiveness of your enemy a sign of gratitude to Allah for giving you the power to conquer him. So if you forgive someone, you let the person know, I'm not forgiving you for you. I'm forgiving you because I actually have the ability to crush you, but I chose not to as a sign of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is my way of thanking Allah. Forgiving you is my way of thanking Allah for giving me the power to crush you. It's powerful, man. That is power. That is power. As I said to my 8th graders last week, that real strength, real power, when you walk into a room, the power is not the loudest person in the room. The power is the quietest person in the room. Make no mistake about that. The loudmouth one doing all the talking, right? That's not the most powerful person in the room. The most powerful person in the room is the quietest person in the room. Make no mistake about that. The one that cuts the checks. His power is in the pen. He writes the check. That's the power. All right, so I mentioned another narration of how forgiveness has the power to change people. That you can forgive someone and it has the power to affect change within that person. That's how powerful forgiveness is. And I mentioned a narration of Malik ibn Dinar, one of the great scholars of the past. دَخَلَ عَلَيْهِ لِصٌ, that a thief entered into his house. فَمَا وَجَدَ مَا يَأْخُذُ يعني مِنَ الدُّنْيَا, and he didn't find anything to steal from his house. A thief broke into a scholar's house. The scholars during that time were ascetics. These were zahid. He didn't care about, the world, worldly life, material gain. They denounced, they divorced the world. Whereas today it's the total opposite. Scholars ride around in BMWs and, Bentleys right? For those of you who, and you guys do this every single time, this is not my left hand. This is my right hand. I am right-handed. I didn't have to learn how to not drink with my left hand because I'm naturally right-handed. So everything I do is with my right hand. The camera is facing you, so my right hand to you looks like my left hand. They're like, well, why is he drinking? It's not the sunnah to drink from the... Do you think I'm sitting in the masjid amongst Muslims? I'm not the only person sitting here. There are Muslims sitting here. And everybody's sitting here letting me drink with my left hand. Like, come on, man. Why? I mean, like, subhanallah al-azim, like, why? Why do you? I think you guys just get a kick out of that. I think you're doing this every lecture because you get a kick out of it. This is my right hand, Habibi. I don't have to learn how to drink with my right hand because I'm right-handed. So for me, it comes very naturally. They're about to start a whole conversation about me drinking with my left hand. Well, it's still no excuse to abandon the sunnah, blah, 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 blah. No benefit of the doubt, no nothing. He's drinking with his left hand. I'm sitting in a masjid in front of a bunch of Muslims, and then nobody said, that's job, right? Shaitan's job is to keep you guys preoccupied, and here you go. Shaitan got you going. Absolutely. Doing his job. All right, so I got to fix this in a way where it doesn't cut off. All right, it's going to be a little awkward.
You need something more?
Yeah.
What should you do?
Well, it'll have to stay like that for now.
Put it in the donation box. Put it in the donation.
It's good for something, huh? Okay, awesome.
Donation box.
Move that.
You got it?
Yeah, just move that over just a little bit more. Yeah, perfect. Yep, right there. Yep. Okay. So, a thief broke into the house of Malik ibn Dinar, and he didn't find anything to steal in the home. So Malik ibn Dinar walked up behind him and he said to him, you didn't find anything to steal from the dunya, from the material world of this, this life. He said, but can I interest you something from the hereafter? You couldn't find anything to steal here, but can I interest you in something from the hereafter? So the thief, being caught off guard, amazed that the owner of the home was there and he got caught, he acquiesced. He said yes. So Malik ibn Dinar told him to make wudu and pray 2 rak'ah. Pray 2 units of prayer. And after they prayed, they left out and they headed towards the masjid. And when people saw them walking together, they asked Malik ibn Dinar who the guy was. And Malik ibn Dinar, he said, Ja'a liyasrukuna fasaraknahu. He came to steal, but I stole him. Meaning, I stole his heart. I stole his soul because he didn't anticipate me dealing with him in the way that I did. Being merciful to someone, it has such an impact. Forgiving someone, it's very powerful. Al-afu in the Arabic language is one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, Al-afu. Al-afu in the Arabic language means to pardon and forgive someone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-afu. He taught Aisha the dua to say, Allahumma innaka afuun kareem tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Oh Allah, you are the pardoner and you are generous and you love to pardon, so pardon me. To forgive someone. But the linguistical meaning of al-afu, pay attention, the Arabic is so beautiful. The linguistical meaning of the word al-afu, it means to heal and to release. That's what it means linguistically. Lughatan. It means to heal or to release. So with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means to relieve or to release the servant of the burden of sin. When Allah forgives us, Allah is relieving us of the burden of sin. When we sin, it weighs very heavy on us. And you got to carry that. Some people sin so much, they believe they've gone so far in their sin that there's no way that they could bounce back from it. So they don't even bother repenting. They don't bother coming back to the masjid. They don't bother making salat. They don't bother trying to do anything from the religion because they believe that my sins have, grown so much, have mounted up so much. There's no way that God will ever forgive me for any of these things. That's a sad state to be in, to believe that you can't come back to Allah. God is always there. He has always been there and will always be there. And if you believe that I've sinned so much, God is not going to forgive me, that is a self-defeating mentality. That is self-defeating mentality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that He forgives all sins. Inna Allaha yaghfiru dhunuba jami'an. That Allah forgives all sins. And to believe that you have done so much that there's no way that God can forgive you. As a Muslim, we say Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. There's nothing greater than God. No sin or no amount of sin that is greater than God. He is the greatest. This is what we say. But then we have this belief, we adopt this belief that there's no way. But al-afu in Arabic, in the linguistical Arabic meaning, means to heal or to relieve or release. And in the case as it relates to the servant and his creator, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you, He's releasing you from the shackles of your sin that was weighing you down, anchoring you, right? That's what sin does. That's the nature of sin, to make you feel like you cannot move any further. This is why when you're inviting someone to Islam, usually what they say is, I'm interested in becoming a Muslim. Islam seems great, but I got too much going on in my life right now. They believe that where they are at that present moment, they are unfit, right? They're unfit to be godly, unfit to have any type of relationship with God at that moment. Right? This is that Christian mentality that I'm born in sin and I can't get to God unless I go through Jesus. This is that mentality. We don't believe in that. We don't believe that children are born in sin. Children are born pure. That's not our belief. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever makes Hajj and performs it in the most perfect way without committing sin or without invalidating their Hajj, they return home from their Hajj like the day their mother gave birth to them. Meaning the day your mother gave birth to you, you were sinless. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us, He releases us from the burden of sin. If you remember the hadith of the man who killed 99 people, right? And then he went to the monk and he said, I killed 99 people. Is there any way that I can repent? He wanted that off of his shoulders. He wanted that off of him. He said, is there any way that I can repent? And the monk said, you killed 99 people. And how can you repent? Because the monk, although a good worshiper, devout worshiper, was not knowledgeable. So he's going to speak from his own from emotion. And when a person is in crises, the last thing they need is an emotional response. They need a response that is, predicated on wisdom, on wit, right? Godly wit. They need a response that is wise. A response that is going to help them climb out of that well. It's like the well of Yusuf. Yusuf's brothers threw him in a well and he just remained there. And sometimes that well represents, symbolically, that well represents sometimes where we are when a person gives us an answer or response to our crisis that keeps us in the same crises. Like telling a person to be patient, right? You tell the person's in crises and you're telling them, be patient, inshallah. You're just keeping the person at the bottom of the well. They can't get out of that. The person doesn't need that type of response. They need a response that is predicated on divine wit, on godly wit, wisdom, founded on real knowledge. Not something that helps to assuage their own consciousness. I tell you to be patient, and that makes me feel religious. But you still remain at the bottom of the well while I walk away thinking that I'm high and mighty, that I've done my job. You haven't done your job. As a matter of fact, you did the opposite. You've done a disservice to that person, telling the person to be patient. Like, come on, man. So he went to the knowledgeable person, right? And he said, is there any way that I could repent? And the knowledgeable person said to him, what can come in between you and your repentance to God? Nothing. Nothing can stand in between you and your repentance to God. That's a knowledge-based response. And he told them that this land that you're in is filled with evil people. Leave this place and go here. But the point that I'm making is that the man, he felt the burden of sin and he wanted it off of him. So when Allah forgives us, that forgiveness, the power of that forgiveness is to make the person feel that I'm free. Right? Look at Musa, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, Prophet Moses in the Quran. The story of his story, part of his story when he killed a man. Right? And when Pharaoh and his group found out about it, they were in pursuit of Musa. Musa left Egypt and fled to a place called Midian, which is modern day Saudi Arabia. He fled to Midian. He met the old man, Shuaib, and he got married, right? And then he headed back towards Egypt. When he went back to Pharaoh, this is another law, right? One of the 48 Islamic laws of power, is that stand in your own truth. And you never have to worry about someone dangling in front of your face, holding it over your head. Stand in your own authentic truth. And you never have to worry about someone else using it against you. When you try to deny who you really are, eventually that catches up to you. You can't run from the truth of who you are. That catches up to you very quickly. That will catch you. Because people, because it's not your authentic self. So that means that you have to put on a facade. And you can only put on the facade but for so long before people can actually see straight through it. You become like the emperor that has no clothes. You walking around thinking that nobody sees you, but you're completely naked to the actual people who are looking at you. Right? You know the story, the old fable, the emperor who has no clothes. Absolutely. That's how you become, trying to maintain a facade about yourself. People can actually see straight through it, and they can see you for who you are. So it's very easy from the very beginning to just stand in your authentic space. Stand and accept the authentic truth of who you are, and you never have to. So when Musa approached Pharaoh, what did Pharaoh say? Pharaoh said, weren't you the same kid that we found floating in the Nile River, and then we took you in and we raised you? Right? To try to belittle him, to try to belittle his message. He said, and then you kill a man, right? And Musa said, yes, I did. I did that. And I was astray when I did that. I didn't know any better. But I turned towards God and he forgave me. I let down that burden. I don't carry that anymore. I don't carry that burden anymore. You understand? I've laid that burden down a long time ago. You can never throw that in my face ever again. Because I've already made peace with that. And I can stand in my authentic space. Allahu Akbar. I can stand in my authentic space. You will never be able to hold that over my head. Yes, I own it. I did it. I'm done. I've repented. That was between me and Allah. I can move forward. Now, if you can't move forward, because you can't wrap your head around the fact, or you can't accept the fact that I'm a human being and I do what humans do, right? Make mistakes. That's what humans do. If you can't accept the mistakes, you can't accept the human me, then that's your journey, not mine. And I'm not going to take that journey with you. I'm not going to be a passenger in your vehicle to self-discovery. I'm sorry. I'm not taking that ride with you. You understand? Very important stuff, man. Very important stuff, man. So laying down your burden, when Allah forgives you, it is a release of the burden that is on your shoulders. Now, for the second meaning of al-afu, which means to heal. That's the second meaning of al-afu, is to heal. And when you forgive another human being, right? When you forgive another human being, you allow yourself to heal. When you forgive someone, you are actually giving yourself permission to heal from the pain that that person has caused you. If a person has caused you pain in your life and you don't forgive them, then you are now basically self-sabotaging your own life, because only you hold the keys to your healing. When you forgive that person, now you have allowed yourself to begin healing. The longer you resent the person, the longer you hate the person, the longer you hold on to that feeling about what that person did to you, the longer you hold on to that, the more delayed your healing will become. You are prolonging your ability to heal, because the key to healing is learning how to forgive. You see how that works? This is part of that human element, man. And there is no way around that. Look at anybody who has not been able to forgive someone that wronged them. You haven't been able to heal. When you say, no, I'm okay, I'm over it. No, you're not over it. Until you forgive that person, until you learn how to let that person go, because that's what you're doing. You're holding them captive. And we sure know how to hold. We want slaves, man. We got a God complex. I'm going to hold you. Right? We do it in our marriages. We do it with our children. We do it with our parents. We hold them. We hold you captive. I'm going to hold you for the rest of your life. I'm going to hold you captive. But the thing about it is that when you play God, that's a very dangerous game to play. When you play God, on the flip side of that, you're actually doing yourself an injustice. You can't play God without dealing with the repercussions of that, right? When you play the role of God by holding a person because of what they did to you, I'm gonna hold you, right? The longer you hold that person, the longer you are prolonging your ability to heal. The moment you let that person go, right? Because we hold on to a person, why? We hold on to resentment. We hold on to hatred. Why? Because it feels good, and because by holding on to you, I'm somehow validating my pain. Because we think that when I let you go and I forgive you, I released you, I freed you from my bondage, from my own personal bondage, right? What about my feelings? What about me? What about what you did to me, right? So it's somehow like holding on to you. We think that we're self-validating. We're validating ourselves by holding on to the other person, not realizing that the longer you hold on to the person, the more prolonged your ability to heal becomes. You follow me? You guys following me? Emotional blackmail. Yes, that's very good. Very good point. So forgiveness is about you, not about the other person. When you keep thinking, well, if I forgive them, then my feelings, what they did to me is, when do I get my right? When do I get validation? You get validation the moment you let them go. Trust me. The moment you say, you know what, I'm no longer going to hold you. I forgive you. I'll let God deal with you. I'll let the spiritual world, I'll let karma handle you. But as for myself, I forgive you. I'm not going to hold that. Because as long as I hold you, the longer I'm holding myself. I'm prohibiting myself from healing. I'm stopping myself from healing. You follow me? Very important, man. So as it relates to our interaction with one another, forgiveness allows us to heal. Resentment is a burden. When you resent someone, you hate someone, you dislike someone, and you carry that joint eats away at you. This is why Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, at the end of all of what his brothers did to him, when they finally found out that he was Yusuf, now he was the king of Egypt during that time. He went from being the younger brother thrown into the belly of the well, and then the bottom of a well, and then sold into slavery for a few dinars, few coins. That's how much they valued his worth. وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودًا. As Allah says in the Quran, they sold him for a few coins. That's how much they valued him. You mean nothing, right? Sell you for a few coins, do all of these things to him, right? He goes to prison, all of these things, only to arrive at being a king. You see what happens? The divine world takes over. And so while a person think they wronged you, you end up becoming a king, right? Don't worry about this person did this to me. Embrace your kingship and embrace your queenship that is waiting for you on the other side, and once you make it through this ordeal. And this happens in marriages with divorce. Sometimes we're divorced and we've like broken down to our lowest molecule, and we feel like there's nothing left of me. All right? And as I tell the sisters all the time, the man broke your heart, not your spirit. The man broke your heart. He didn't break your spirit. Right? And you have to allow yourself, like all of the things that Yusuf's brothers did to him, and he still became a king at the end of it all. So you never know how someone's test for you is, at the end of that test, is your crown is waiting for you at the end of that. And when they found out that it was Yusuf, they said, "Innaka la anta Yusuf? Are you Yusuf?" And then he exposed to them, "Yeah, I'm your brother, I'm Yusuf." And he said, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm yaghfirullahu lakum." I will not hold you today for what you did to me yesterday. Allah will forgive you. He didn't hold, I'm not going to carry that. You did what you did. And your affair is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will pray for your forgiveness. But I am not going to hold that. I'm not going to carry that burden of resentment. That's a burden, man. That's a burden to be walking around hating someone, disliking someone. And this a lot of times happens with divorces, man. People get separated and divorced, and you can't even enjoy your current marriage because you're still resenting, you're still hating your previous spouse. And it's beginning to infringe on your current relationship. Because of that transference of negative energy, you have now become a vehicle carrying negative energy from one relationship to the next, and you cannot even enjoy. You got a good man, you got a good woman, the same good man, good woman you've been begging Allah for. Allah gave them to you, Allah gave it to you, but you can't even enjoy them because you've now become a vehicle for negative energy, emotional baggage. Absolutely. You're carrying it from one relationship to the next, and it has infringed on your ability to heal. It has infringed on your ability to enjoy life. Dangerous, man. So resentment is a burden, while forgiveness allows, the mental and emotional space to heal from the wounds of infringement caused by others who don't understand and or don't recognize the necessity of moral boundaries. So essentially, forgiveness is about you and not about the other person. Forgiveness is about you not allowing the other individual whom you may not be fond of to occupy space in your heart. And just as it is important to hope for Allah's forgiveness, it is also important to base our relationships with one another on the quality of forgiveness. For we cannot expect forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we are not willing to accept or give or offer forgiveness to others. We can't expect that. All right? I'll end with this last incident just to show you, how hypocritical some of us are in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We raise our hands, we ask Allah for guidance, but yet we guide no one. We don't have time for anybody. People email you, call you, whatever, asking for guidance, direction, and we can't even assist them because we're too busy. All right, people, we raise our hands and ask Allah for forgiveness, but we would refuse to forgive anybody. Anytime somebody wrongs you, right? Anytime someone wrongs you, you want retribution. And no, you don't have to forgive. You don't have to. Forgiving someone and developing a relationship with someone is two totally different things. Don't conflate the two. Because I forgive you doesn't now mean that I have to now put myself back in a space to give you the opportunity to do it to me again. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La yuldagu mu'min fi juhrin marratain." The believer does not get stung in the same hole twice. We learned this is another law, right? One of the 48 Islamic laws of power. Don't get stung in the same hole twice. We don't put ourselves in the same predicament. For you cannot, create a new situation with the same thinking that got you into the situation to begin with. How do you get out of a situation using the same thinking that got you into the situation to begin with? You have to learn how to benefit and learn from your mistakes. So to let someone into your space, they infringe on you, they transgress against your rights, you forgive them, and then let them back into your space to do it to you again? That's insane. Einstein said that doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, is insanity. That is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. People are who they are. People don't change. Your perception of people changes, but people don't change. They are who they are. They may make some modifications to certain qualities about them, but the essence of who they are, that doesn't change. So if a person is a snake, they are a snake. That's who they are. Make no mistake about it. And when people show you who they are, believe them. Believe them. When a person shows you who they are, believe them. They're telling you the truth. They're not lying to you. Person is a snake, they're a snake, that's just who they are. Years later, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be a snake. You're just aware of how they move. And so therefore you don't grant them the space to come back into your life, especially not after you've toiled and struggled with yourself, right? Trying to get to that moral excellence, only to allow somebody back into your space to do the same thing over to you again. No. So forgiving someone, right? Forgiving someone doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be best friends or we have to function in the same space that we were in before. No, I can forgive you and I can release you from my emotional captivity, right? I can let you go, but that doesn't mean that I have to remain connected to you. We're not connected. I forgave you. And that's the only thing. And if I did nothing else in this life except to forgive you, we're even. I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you anything, right? So when the hypocrites of Medina accused Aisha of adultery, this happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where she lost her necklace, and in looking for the necklace, the caravan pulled off and left her. And, looking for the necklace, she fell asleep, and one of the companions who remained lagged behind to make sure that nothing fell off the caravan, saw Aisha, laying down. He waited until she woke up, and then she got on the camel, and he walked the camel back to Medina. Never touched her, never talked to her, nothing. When the hypocrites of Medina saw the man walking the camel into Medina and Aisha on the back of the camel, they used that as an opportunity to create turmoil, not just in the Prophet ﷺ's community, but now in his own home. And there's nothing worse than for a leader to experience trial, tribulation, turbulence in his own home, right? Leaders are people that can function in society because their homes are peaceful. Leaders cannot do the things that they do, the magnificent things that they do on the outside of the home, unless the things inside of the home are put in place. Make no mistake about that. And so while we see leaders and they gain, they receive all of the accolades of being a student of knowledge or the sheikh or whatever the case may be, we oftentimes forget the women that are behind these great figures that we hold, these iconic figures that we raise up, that we elevate so high. We forget about the women who made that possible. And I can tell you that I wouldn't be half of what I am by myself. Your wife leave you with the kids for a couple of hours and you pulling your hair out. And they deal with the kids day in, day out, no breaks, 24/7, and they do it with grace. Within an hour or two, we pulling our hair out. When you come texting, how long before you get back? Because the children have already given us a couple of gray hairs within 2 or 3 hours. And our wives, they do it with grace. They do it standing on one hand, managing the children, changing diapers, cooking food. And usually they are, not that they do it for anything, but the imam and the student of knowledge is usually in the front and everybody's champion, his cause or whatever. And no one ever thinks about the women who made that possible. No one thinks twice about the women behind that individual who actually made that possible. So very important for us to understand that. So one of the accusers of Aisha, accused Aisha of adultery was a man by the name of Mistah ibn Uthatha, who was actually one of the Muhajirin, one of those who migrated from Mecca to Medina, and he was also the cousin of Aisha's father, Abu Bakr. So you figure that. Here is Abu Bakr's daughter being accused of adultery. And one of the people accusing her of adultery is her father's cousin, Mistah, who got caught up in this situation. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Mistah was a poor man, and Abu Bakr used to give him sadaqah, used to give him charity. And when Abu Bakr found out that Mistah was involved in this situation with his daughter, he vowed, he took an oath that he would never give him anything else of assistance, financial assistance. I would never give you another dinar, period. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded Abu Bakr of a very important principle in our religion, and that is that our relationship with one another is just an extension of our relationship with Allah. Meaning, if you wouldn't do that to Allah, if you wouldn't do it to God, then don't do it to one of God's creatures. Meaning that if you request something from God, then you should be the first person to give it to one of God's creatures. Follow me. Our interaction with one another is simply an extension of our interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah revealed in Surah An-Nur, Surah number 24 in the Quran, وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولِي الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ أَن يُؤْتُوا أُولُو الْقُرْبَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلِيَعْفُوا وَلِيَصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayat about Abu Bakr. Subhanallah. Allah says, and let not those from amongst you who have been given wealth and who are well-to-do financially, let not them make an oath not to assist those who are in need, whether it is their closest family members, whether it is the poor who migrated in the cause of Allah. He said, let them forgive and overlook. Wouldn't you want Allah to forgive you and overlook you? Powerful. Forgive and overlook. Wouldn't you want Allah to forgive and overlook you? How could you treat someone, how could you ask Allah for something and then turn around and not extend it, readily extend it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creatures? Think about the next time you ask Allah for forgiveness. And think about all of the people that you are holding emotionally captive that you won't forgive. You holding them by the leg, holding them. For years you've been holding this person, you won't let them go. I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters, now, let them go. If you are holding someone emotionally captive, let them go. It does not mean that what they did wrong to you, that they're going to get away with it. Or it doesn't mean that the pain that you've experienced as a result of them in your space is invalid. We know that any pain that we feel is meritorious. Allah is going to reward you for your pain. Pain in Islam is valuable. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا يصيب المؤمن لا نصب ولا وصب ولا أذى حتى الشوكة يشاكها إِلَّا كَفَّرَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى بِهَا الْخَطَايَا. The Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that no Muslim or no believer is affected with any type of anxiety, any pain, physical pain, even the prickling of a thorn, except that Allah is removing sin from you. So whatever pain a person caused you in your life, even if you let them go and you say, you know what, I forgive you, that doesn't mean that they're off the hook and that your pain is, without merit, that your pain goes without merit. Allah is going to reward you for the pain that they caused you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure that you are compensated for the pain that was caused to you. And if you don't believe that, then that's your journey, to God. That's between you and God. I believe that. And this is what allows people to, be healthy mentally. Going back to the mental health issues in our communities. And a lot of the mental health issues in our communities is as a result of a lot of the pain that has been inflicted on us that we have yet to reconcile. I'll say that again, because some of you don't believe me. Some of you don't believe me. A lot of the pain that we are experiencing, a lot of the mental illnesses that we are experiencing in our communities is as a result of the pain that was inflicted on us that we have not reconciled. Whether it was emotional pain, physical pain, psychological pain, mental pain, it doesn't matter. We have yet to reconcile it. Whether it was pain from our childhood, something that one of our parents did to us, something that one of our relatives did to us, that we have yet to reconcile. And as a result of that, it morphs into what we know today as mental health illnesses. It morphs. Simple pain, it morphs into mental health issues like stress, like anxiety, like bipolar, disorders, like ADD, attention deficit disorder, not being able to focus, like becoming withdrawn from people, withdrawn from the world, out of fear, extreme levels of fear, schizophrenia, all of these different mental health issues that people are suffering from. A lot of it is rooted in the pain, the unresolved pain that has been caused to us, the unresolved trauma that has been caused to us in our lives. And when we begin to, heal, when we begin to heal from those things, inshallah ta'ala, we can begin to actually enjoy people, enjoy our religion, enjoy our lives. How many people, subhanAllah, out of 1 million and some odd sperm cells that was ejected into your mother, out of the 1 million and some odd sperm cells, you made it to the egg. You fertilized the egg. That means that there was something special about you. You were determined to live because those other 1 million and some odd sperm cells died. You made it to the egg. Out of 1 million, you are 1 million, 1 in a million, right? 1 in a million. Think of those odds, man. And you made it to the egg. You fertilized the egg. You didn't just make it past the first layer of the egg. You went all the way in and fertilized the egg. You fought for life. Think about that. And you think about someone becoming so depressed that they take their lives. Think about someone who is so disgruntled and so upset with life that you take your life. It's not fair, man. It's not fair. And these are issues, especially within the Islamic community, we have to reconcile. Our children are suffering, man. Our young children are suffering. They live in a world where they're taught that the religion that they profess is somehow the cause of all of the world's problems. We live in a world where our children are taught subliminally that they are the world's problem. And the best that we can offer these children is put on your hijab Make your 5 salat. You're not doing enough. You need to pray. You need to read more. You need to pray more. You need to fast more. This is the best that we can offer these children. And it's not fair, man. It's not fair. Wallahi, it's not fair. And we will be responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The best that we can offer our children is admonition and nasiha. The best that we can offer them is advice and admonishment. That's the best thing that we can offer them. We can't give them anything else. What about love? What about compassion? What about understanding? What about patience? Until they're able to get to a point where they can embrace the religion on their own terms. None of those things are factors. The moment they walk into our lives, the moment they come into our lives, off we go trying to manage and mold and shape their lives to be complete replicas of ourselves. We steal their individuality. They can't be individuals because we want you to be like me. I want you to be like me. So you don't have the ability to be you. You're going to be an exact replica of me. We steal their individuality, man. We steal everything from them. And then we wonder why a child turns around and decides, I'm going to take my life. And, and that's something that we have to reconcile. In our ummah, we have to reconcile this issue. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. 7:39. I got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, inshallah. I don't know if there were any questions. Any questions related to the topic, inshallah? You guys online have any questions related to the topic, inshallah? If not, inshallah, well, then we'll stop here.
So what was your opinion about, as you said, like for the kids, instead of giving them nasiha or giving them advice, what is the different way of approaching?
Okay, so he said instead of
Or telling them.
He said, what other options can we offer the children other than advice or admonition? The other options before advice, I think the first thing is understanding. We have to learn how to meet them where they are. Our children, although born and raised Muslim, they're having a different experience with Islam in, Donald Trump's America than we had 20, 30 years ago. They're having a completely different experience with Islam. And so for starters, I think that there needs to be some type of understanding with compassion. Like, I was in New York, Imam Siraj's masjid a couple of weeks ago. And one of the girls, she said, sometimes I might come into the masjid and I have on, tight jeans and I have on fake nails or whatever. She said, and the first thing that someone would say is, oh, those nails are haram. You need to fear Allah, blah, 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 And she said, okay, while I understand that they're haram, she said, what I am expecting from you as a parent is to nurture me and to teach me, pull me to the side and say, if you pray with those nails on, then perhaps your salat is not accepted because the wudu does not reach the nail. And then let her sit with that. And let her reconcile that within herself. And she'll fix it on her own. If salat is important to her, obviously, if a young girl walks into a masjid with tight jeans on and fake nails on, why is she in the masjid? She didn't have to come to the masjid. You follow me? If she's in the masjid and not out in the street somewhere, not somewhere she have no business being, if she's in the masjid, then work with her. She's there for a reason. She didn't just come into the masjid to kick it and hang out. She came to the masjid to pray to God. That means that there's still a foundation there. She's salvageable. You understand? She's salvageable. She's someone that you can save, you can work with. But instead of taking that and working with it, right, we dismantle her. We decimate her with the admonition and, you need to fear Allah. How about you need to love Allah? Because so much they're already in fear. Our children are already in fear.
It's not only children, even the adults, they are running away from the messages. They are running away. As you said, there is a mentality that if you follow Islam, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
If you're following the Sunnah, or if you come to the masjid, you are like a weird guy, or this is not how you're supposed to behave. So people are staying away from the messages. They're staying at their homes. They don't want to practice Islam. What do you say about that?
The parents?
No, people, regular Muslims.
Well, we have to understand that. I mean, I can't address everyone in terms of why they are running away from Islam. People are running away from Islam for a variety of reasons. Some people think that maybe by, stepping away from Islam for a little bit kind of allows them to enjoy the rest of the world, because there's this stigma on people who are Muslims. So if I kind of step away from that, then maybe I can just be normal, right? There's a T-shirt a friend of mine had on, and it said, "Normal people scare me." Nobody wants to come in and just be normal. What is normal? What is normal? Normal, in many instances, is just being accepted by everyone. And people tend to think that that's normal. If I have to conform to a status quo, if I have to dress a certain way, if I have to act a certain way to be accepted as normal, then consider me abnormal. I'm atypical, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I don't have to be normal if that is what you mean by normal, to be accepted by everyone. As long as I accept me, that's the most important thing. Because you can change everything about you and have everyone accept you, but when you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't accept you. But you can remain who you are, stand in your authentic truth, and look in the mirror and accept who you are, and don't care if the world doesn't accept who you are. I'm okay. I can accept who I am, even if the world can't. And that's the most important thing. And that's another life law in our religion, is to learn how to accept you for who you are. And as long as you can do that, then you should be okay. And I think, to be honest with you, I think a lot of Muslims just have a hard time doing that. They have a hard time accepting themselves. I am Muslim. This is what it is. This is what it is. And I don't make any excuses for that. You have to stand in your space as a Muslim unapologetically. Any other questions related to the topic? I mean, as it relates to why people are running away from Islam, I can't speak on every single situation, but
media that portrays a negative.
It's hard to say because it's hard to say, honestly. It's a very broad topic of why people are kind of. I actually see Muslims. Believe it or not, I think. I'm just being optimistic here. I think that there are a lot of Muslims who do want to practice Islam and do want to stand in that space. I think a lot of it has to do with our leadership. In the Islamic community, our leadership many of them are old. Their ways, their values are very antiquated, and they have no connection with the younger generation. And I think that has a lot to do with why many of the Muslim youth are so disconnected, because we spend a lot of our time trying to conform to this old graybeard sheikh with a thobe on or whatever the case may be. And we do that at the expense of disconnecting ourselves from our youth. Opposed to, trying to understand them in their space, trying to understand, why they do, trying to understand them where they are. Legacy, but trying to have it the way that they had it when he was alive in Medina, they didn't try to maintain that because they knew that that was going to disappear. And they had to, live life, as they say, on life's terms, as it comes to you. Instead of creating this picture book image of Islam in our minds and trying to force the world in front of you to conform to the image of Islam that you have in your mind. That's what we do. We have this picture perfect image of Islam, the Sahaba, and we'll use these references about how this didn't happen during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and how the Sahaba were like this. You have a picture book image of Islam. Pure theory. Pure theory. And then what you try to do is you try to make the world in front of you conform to be congruent with the image that you have in your mind. And this is where the disconnect comes. Instead of meeting the world where it is head on. When they saw things happening, as Allah says in Surah Ahzab, Surah number 3, that when they saw the army coming towards them, they said, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَثْبِيتًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and when they saw the army, the Confederates coming towards them, what did they say? They didn't say, oh my God, as if they hadn't been forewarned about this. They said, this is what Allah and His Messenger, told us. Right? They said, I gotta stand. We gotta do a little better than this, inshallah. Next time. They said that this is what Allah and His Messenger promised us. And Allah and His Messenger told us the truth, and it only increased them in faith and in steadfastness. They met life on life's terms. They knew that the things the Prophet ﷺ prophesied, they were going to come into fruition. And they accepted that. Whereas today we see things happen in front of us. We see what's happening in Palestine and Rohingya, and what's happening in Yemen. We see all of these things happen, but all of these things were prophesied. And we're up in arms, and we have to be able to accept that these are the things that the Prophet ﷺ promised us. And he told us the truth. وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Allah and His Messenger told us the truth. And it should only increase us in faith, increase us in steadfastness. When they saw the army coming, they said, this is what Allah and His Messenger promised us. And Allah and His Messenger told us the truth, and it only increased them in faith, in iman, wa tathbita, and steadfastness. So when we see these things happening in front of us, it should only increase us in iman. It should not make our iman go lower. Our faith should not decrease because of what is happening in front of us. Our faith should be increasing because of what is happening in front of us, because this is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ, he gave us the whole blueprint, man. We got the whole world in a blueprint called the Quran and the Sunnah. We got it right here. We got life's manual right in front of us. 6,000 and some odd ayats in a book that starts with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen and it ends with Qul na'udhu bi Rabbin Nas. We have within those two, we have the entire manual for life. The entire blueprint printed out for us. But what do? Because we're not connected to the Quran, because we're not connected to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we're just, taking it day by day as it happens. These things should only be increasing us in faith, increasing us in steadfastness. We see it happening every single day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know if there were any more questions, inshallah. One more question and then we'll stop. One more question and then we'll stop here.
Online questions?
A couple.
coffee on the right hand.
The coffee on the right hand. Iman fluctuates. Sometimes we feel like, we're on top of our faith, and sometimes we feel like, complete hypocrites. I could be doing better. That's normal. That's normal. That's supposed to happen. So, the whole idea of, forgiving people, learning how to be forgiving of people, this is, a quality that we should be striving for. We should be striving for moral excellence. Moral excellence. Keep that in mind. That should be our tagline at this point, striving for moral excellence. And that includes our values, our principles, and the behaviors that we use that those values and principles govern. Our values and our principles govern our behavior, which is why faith and action go hand in hand. How you believe is how you act.
One thing that you said, that you should be happy with the way you are, but sometimes you don't know what you're doing is right or is wrong. Like you may, with your own knowledge, think that you're doing something wrong, right, but it's something wrong. And then like people will criticize you and say, oh, this is what you're doing is wrong. And that's what all the criticism comes. Like a person walks into the masjid, doesn't have his this or pants up or is not wearing a hat, and then people will start scolding him. And
I just had the similar question to Brother Shadid. I think this is the conflict, probably the lack of study about the Islam, our homeland, imams, and the scholars. They are not much into probably, and they're, presenting a different way, so the people get confused. The ummah who goes to the masajid and say which imam or which shaykh, which person, one is Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat, or the other one is Barelvi, the other one is Deobandi, and each one they have their own interpretation, and then who is right and who we should follow. And if you don't have a kufa, or if your pants is touching the masalla, or there's so many things, I think that's what the Muslim Ummah is
that we are fighting about. And then if I come without this, then I'll say, listen, I'm okay wearing this. And then you say, no, you have to wear a soap. You have to wear.
Then the person himself got confused. I'm obeying the right, Brother Shadid. I listened Brother Shadid, then I went, maybe Brother Wahab, maybe he interpreted with a different way. So if I look even to myself in the mirror, so is God accepting me as is, the way it is, or who's right, who I should follow?
Okay, so those type of problems are always going to exist, and I think the reason why is because a lot of our leadership, Muslim leadership, speaks so emphatically. We don't leave any room for differing. We don't leave any room for error. When we speak emphatically. This is it, and there is no other way around it. So that leaves you, the listener, to believe that what that person said is law. And so what you do is you accept that, and then you go around, and everyone that you see that does something that is contrary to that, then that person is obviously wrong. And this is that whole idea of black and white Islam. And that has, crippled us on so many levels of this whole black and white image of Islam. And that is as a result of ignorance. That is as a result of ignorance. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And you're very cautious about, giving verdicts and rulings and things like this, especially when you study, the issues of fiqh. You find the depth of the ikhtilafat, of the differing among scholars and issues. You had scholars who said that they didn't have an opinion on an issue for years. Decades go by. They don't have an opinion on the issue, while today you have everyone that are so opinionated on just about every issue. It's okay to say, I don't know, or I don't have an opinion on that, or I have an opinion, but I'm going to keep it to myself. but everyone speaks so emphatically, so absolutely about issues. It leaves the people that are listening no option to differ, no option to take another point. Even sometimes you'll sit listening to a lecture and you'll be afraid to even question what the person is saying, because they speak so absolutely, so matter-of-factly. And there's a difference between speaking with confidence, and I would like to think that myself. I hope I don't make people feel that they can't challenge me. I welcome. Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah ta'ala, was another scholar. Like, he used to welcome, people challenging him. And, he would welcome that. And this comes from, just being confident in where you are, and also knowing that you don't have all the answers. And if someone can bring you a position that is more legitimate or more preferable than the position that you've taken, you would be willing to accept that. That is true scholarship. That is real knowledge. That is real scholarship. Whereas today, we hide behind, it's almost like we take these different opinions that we have about Islam and we use them. It's something Dr. Hatim al-Haji said about 2 weeks ago. He said, when we identify with religiosity, Islam becomes a problem. Basically, we identify ourselves through how religious we project we are, instead of the opposite. We determine our individuality by how religious we are. Meaning, you are nobody without the religion. So we hide behind the religion and we create these opinions and these images of ourselves in light of the religion, because we don't know how to be individuals. We define our individuality through our religiosity. And that's a problem. Profound, man. Very profound. I am not who I am because of how religious I am. My religiosity is between me and God. You have nothing to do with that. I am an individual before you. I have my flaws, my mistakes, but I am not an individual because of how religious I am. You guys follow me? Very dangerous for a person to do that. And we live in that time. We live in a time where people identify, or their individuality is determined based upon their religiosity. Very dangerous, man. And, I think people use Islam, man. I think, it's very dangerous for a person to take on that mentality, because then that means that, the moment someone criticizes you religiously, or the moment you make a mistake, as you're going to as a human being, then that means as an individual, there's nothing of you left. Your whole persona comes crumbling down like glass or from a window that's broken. Fall on a piece or fall on the ground and shatter into pieces. That is your persona once you make a mistake religiously. So inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Join me, for those of you who are online, join me tomorrow inshallah ta'ala at 11 a.m. For another episode of Women's Intuition. We'll be talking about 5 ways that many women destroy their marriages, and this will be class number 3. And tomorrow's discussion will be about women who treat good guys bad. Why does the good guy always catch the bad rap? Yeah, inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.